Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the 24th annual Wall of Fame banquet here at the Beaver Dam High School. Thank you all very much for showing up today. My name is Craig Warmbold. I am with Good Karma Brands and WBEV, ESPN, Beaver Dam, and Daily Dodge, and I'm your Master of Ceremonies for today's program. Thank you for coming to once again pay honor to the most distinguished graduates of the Beaver Dam school system and those who lead by example. It is good to see so many new faces and so many familiar faces out here today. I would like to take a minute to recognize the teachers, the educators who are here with us in the audience today and joining us. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to our children who are tomorrow's leaders and our future friends of education and outstanding alumni. So to all you teachers, thank you. And I know I've seen a few of you out there, Brian, and a couple of you others, so thank you for your service. I'd also like to introduce some of the past friends of education who are in attendance with us here today. That includes Kay Stelflug, who was recognized in 2002 as a friend of education. Kay, thanks for joining us. Roger Knoll is here as well. He was a 2003 friend of education. Of course, our thanks to Roger for putting together portions of the program this evening that you'll be seeing shortly. Annette Camps is here with us. Annette was a 2006 friend of education. Barb Link is here with us as well. Barb is with the Alpha Xi chapter of the Delta Kappa Gamma Society International, and she was a 2018 friend of education. Barb? Now, if there's any past recipients of the Friend of Education Award that we missed, please stand up, raise your hand, let us know. Thank you for all that you've done for education here in Beaver Dam at the Beaver Dam School District. Thank you. So that brings us now to the Friends of Education portion of tonight's program. To introduce our first Friend of Education, I'd like to welcome up to the podium Mark DiStefano.
Wherever you'd like to be. Good evening. It is my distinct honor to have this moment to share a few words with you about Bev. Bev Beal Lake, while most of you that are here today know of her and have had the opportunity to work with her and know some of the work that she has done, I wanted to offer some specific context that might add value to your appreciation for the impact that her engagement as a true friend of education has had. And I've cleared this with, I have, I believe, 4 bosses with me this evening, so 4 school board members, and they reviewed this, and there are several stories that I'm going to share on their behalf. Some of them may not, no, I'm just kidding, I'm not going to get into that. But seriously, based on her slate of experiences and her commitments, there's no doubt that she is engaged in good work that has supported our students and our community for several years. Her desire and willingness to go above and beyond on several fronts is nothing short of a direct reflection of her character and strong desire to give. I have had my own journey and experiences directly with Bev. We have worked together in community-based service organizations and roles during which she has always sought ways to add value to the group or the efforts that she has been a part of and has never rested on her laurels. As a matter of fact, she has called others to task through her modeling and her example to make sure that everyone is giving their best. It's also common for Bev to promote and encourage the support of other service groups or efforts in our community, even if she is not directly a part of it. As long as she believes their work efforts or projects add value for the children in Beaver Dam, she will support it. And as a member of our Board of Education, she has served in a variety of capacities. Her level of engagement and outreach were always high, and she remained very grounded in her desire to find a way to do the very best for our students and their education. During her service on the board, she also spent some time as the board president. And not only does that take an increased level of engagement, drive, and accountability, most recently she navigated that role with a fairly green superintendent at that time. Sorry, Bev, and thank you. Thank you for having an intense commitment to service in our community. Thank you for the time and talents you have shared and your continued support of education, students, and our community as a whole. I know that while this recognition validates the great work you have done, your commitment remains strong as ever, and your desire to give and serve in this community will continue for many years to come. Bev Beal Lake, on behalf of the Beaver Dam Unified School District, thank you for being such a wonderful friend of education, and congratulations on your recognition and award. Come on up.
This reminds me of the time that my mother went to a school conference for her daughter Bev. And when she came home, she said, I had to ask the teacher, I'm Bev's mom. Are you sure? You're talking about my daughter. Because I had a tendency to be very on in school and then let down when I got home from school. So different personalities, thank you. I just have to say a few words, honestly, it'll just be a few. And the first words are, I have been so very fortunate to be able to spend most of my life, whether it was growing up in Columbus or here in Beaver Dam, in these communities that have been so supportive of education. Not just inside the classroom, but outside of the classroom. Growing up, I was blessed with great teachers, and teachers that were university certified, but also teachers that taught me more about life in general outside of the school day. They taught me things that I could use as I made my way to adulthood, things like practical skills, although typing was not one of them, moral and ethical conversations that we were able to have, along with their modeling of behaviors that were good ways to work through certain situations and different situations. So great role models, and they really helped me learn how to better meaningfully interact with others while making good decisions. I always told my kids, and actually I like to tell this to some of my 70-year-old friends too, or plus older, when they leave for the day, to make good choices. It's amazing the looks you get from a 70-year-old when you tell them to make good choices. All of this has really given me the opportunity to play a small part in contributing my time to organizations, both inside and outside of school, that I believe help all age levels, but especially the kids. My time spent on the school board was gratifying in so many ways. And yes, it was a lot of work and it was a lot of meetings. But I really enjoy those activities, and that allowed me to interact more directly with the children. Different levels, of course, while I was with board activities, but a couple of other great examples that I have become more involved with over the last 5 years is I'm working with the Jefferson second grade class in junior achievement. And second graders are so fun, and they're at my skill level, so that's even better. They're just so honest and excited about learning about communities and businesses until the tax collector came to take their $2 away. That has been really great, and we're doing that right now. Another organization that I've gotten involved with is the Playground Movement. And the Playground Movement is another great example of what one person saw as a need in the residential area of she has a business, Habitat for Humanity Restore, and that business is in a low-income area of Beaver Dam. And she saw needs that went well beyond people coming into the Restore. Playground Movement is now a 501c3 and is, of course, looking to go even further than her play dates that were started on Sundays, and there is a board of directors. I have been very privileged, I think, to be part of that and to get to know another set of families and children that I might not have otherwise. To kind of sum it up, to be recognized as a friend of education alongside the many accomplishments of all the past recipients really is humbling, because all of the previous recipients, well-deserved and really big role to live up to. I also want to thank the Wall of Fame Committee. I want to thank my family, especially my husband, because while I was out running and doing activities, he was probably home with the kids or figuring out how to make supper on his own. Appreciate that. And also, just so many of you out there, I've worked with you one way or another in some volunteer activity. Thank you, because you've also helped me.
What a fantastic speech. And, speaking personally, I covered as a news reporter the Beaver Dam School Board for many years, and Bev was on it for 90% of that time, and she was always so gracious in offering insights, and I always do appreciate that. Thank you for that, Bev. I'm also very glad that you're not on the school board right now, and that's because there's a clear quorum violation going on. What are there, like 8 or 9 of you here, I think? I hope there's an agenda for this. Okay, all right, that's good then. Sorry. We do want to now go to our second recipient of our Friends of Education Award, and here to introduce that is Mary Cloweter.
I am really excited to be here to honor Gail Princeton as a friend of education. Gail, a little bit about Gail, he is a retired elementary teacher from the Beaver Dam School District. I believe Gail was in probably three different elementary schools, Gail, finishing his career at Jefferson as a third grade teacher. And Jefferson has had a long history of celebrating Arbor Day. Arbor Day is coming up this Friday, as a matter of fact. And there was a teacher at Jefferson, and her name was Phyllis Frederick. She started the tradition at Jefferson of celebrating Arbor Day and planting a tree. And that was a partnership with, can you hear me? Sorry about that. That was a partnership with Kiwanis. And they started that arboretum that is on the corner of Jefferson and Stone Street. So Phyllis had that tradition of Arbor Day every year, and when she retired, Gail was at Jefferson, and he took that over. So 70 years, he's never missed a year, even during the pandemic. He and his wife Pam came to Jefferson and in the rain and made sure that they honored Arbor Day and planted a tree. So we're just very appreciative of that, because 70 years is a very long time, and it's just something that Gail's really devoted to doing. So I always know he's going to contact me at the beginning of April to set up that time, and he connects with one of our third grade classrooms, and they do a really nice job presenting some information about Arbor Day and planting the tree. So thank you very much, Gail. Much deserving of this award today.
Gail, on behalf of the Beaver Dam Unified School District, I'd like to congratulate you on being an identified friend of education this year, and thanks for what you do. And I had the opportunity to spend a brief moment with you yesterday as you were getting geared up for later this week and rehearsing. So I appreciate how serious you take that and the dedication you bring. Thank you so much.
It's an honor to have been chosen for the Friend of Education Award. It was a total surprise to me because I just do what I do. First of all, I would like to thank Jefferson Principal Mary Cluitter for nominating me. I would also like to thank the Rotary Club of Beaver Dam for funding the tradition of the Arbor Day tree planting. That's gone on now, as Mary said, for 70 years at Jefferson School, and the Rotarian service to our community has now reached their 100th year. So they're having a dual celebration this year. Thankfully, they still have a strong commitment towards helping develop an awareness of the world around us, especially for the children of Beaver Dam. I'm just part of carrying on a tradition. Phyllis Frederick, as she said, was a 5th grade teacher and was there for the first 25 plus years of the Arbor Day tree planting. Jan Richardson and maybe a couple other teachers were in between. Then I finally made my way back to Jefferson and have done it the last 30 plus years or so. I believe personally that it's great to take a look outside and really look. Observe closely what's going on out there. We all know that's not so easy anymore with children. I can't believe how much it changed in my lifetime with the competition from handheld devices. I myself still spend a lot of time among the trees and even up in trees, as much time as I can, adding to the stories of my own experiences like the ones that I used to tell my students. So what turned into a teaching program connected to our Arbor Day tradition was a natural extension of what I love to do. It's never a burden. I enjoy doing it. It gets the creative juices flowing a little bit. And I work my calendar of activities around the last Friday in April every year. I'd like to thank my wife for keeping that clear for us and keep my time free, and also listening to all my ideas for the programs and helping think things through. I work with a class at Jefferson, most of the time a 3rd grade class, like Mary said. We did the music chorus kids one year too for something, because that's I taught the 3rd graders most of my career. And I try to keep the program simple enough, 2 or 3 short practices, because with minimal teacher assistance, because they have enough on their plate already. They're busy every day contributing to the growth of their students, and I hope I can just add a tiny bit more to that in the brief time that I spend with them. The Arbor Day program message has been the same every year: the benefits of trees to us and our earth, what they give us and do for us. And we try to add a little bit of fun to it. Everyone in the class does something in the program. They speak, they narrate, they move materials. A couple of the braver ones do a commercial from a local sponsor, which we make up, of course. And the whole school is invited to attend. Then the class I'm working with, sometimes others helped plant the tree. And by being involved in the program and the planting, I believe it helps the students take some ownership in what happens at their school. We've had some occasional vandalism problems in the past where even whole trees have been destroyed, but knock on wood, I haven't seen that the last several years. I like to think that there's a little greater respect for what the Jefferson community of students has been a part of and helped with. And now we're possibly entering a 4th generation of participants in that program. You may have heard stories about the courtyard at Jefferson. Dr. Barb Link, who you just heard about before, had an idea of a hallway connecting an old wing to a new wing that was being constructed. And that created an enclosed courtyard. So that was an opportunity to plant some more trees and some bushes and a few flowers and construct a couple of planters, stone and timber, and then a few years later a prairie plot. Benches were added so classes could sit and read or work on nice spring and fall days. It was a science classes extension for me. Some things selected deliberately for that purpose, but a lot of spontaneous teaching moments arose also. We could hit the topics of soil, geology, ecosystems, habitats, and other things. I had the fortune of being in a classroom that had windows looking into the courtyard. So sometimes it provided a way to just take a breath during the day and see what was going on in the out of doors that I loved. There was quite a bit of manual labor involved too. There was spring cleanup, fall cleanup, sprucing up before the school year started and things like that. So there was quite a bit of work involved, but I enjoyed every minute of it. The courtyard became a protective haven for visiting birds, bees, butterflies, and other insects, and then mallard ducks. If you've heard about the courtyard, you've probably heard a duck story. When I retired over a decade ago now, I know the number of hatchlings was approaching 200, and I don't think they've stopped yet. We learned from the ducks that nature has to take its course. We tried catch and release, and then I discovered something else, and that's a long story, and then Mrs. Higgins and Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Westra that were still there when I was gone became the escort service, where the ducks had the doors were open to the hallway and then to the outside, and they had to make sure they didn't take any wrong left or right turns and made their way into the cruel world, where they had cats and dogs and traffic and storm sewers and hawks and whatever on their dangerous march to where they wanted to go. Probably the funniest story was one spring day after some ducklings had hatched. We usually left them in the courtyard for a couple of days so all the kids could see them and enjoy them for a little bit, made sure there was water and everything out there before they were released. And one day a parent was a little bit before the end of the day stopping in to pick up her kids, and she pops her head in the office and says, do you know you have a whole bunch of ducks down the hallway? And a teacher had left the library door open because it was nice out to get some fresh air and forgot about it. Well, Mama Duck took her little ones on a tour of the library and then out into one of the main hallways where she was looking for a way out. Well, the kids flooded out of the classroom that day, and so we had a kind of an impromptu catch and release going on right in front of all of them right there. That was probably the funniest thing that ever happened with them. We were in a classroom, but if a teaching and a learning moment was occurring outside, time out, take the time for it. I feel it's just as important to develop those observational skills and curiosity about nature and our physical world as it is the skills with words and numbers. Okay, I'm proud to have carried on the tradition at Jefferson School for these last 30-plus years. I spent 3/4 of my career teaching there and have lots of fond memories of the students and staff members. As I reflect on the past, I know with gratitude how much the staff, administration, and community support through the Rotarians has made it a joy to be a part of all that. Finally, I'm getting a little long here, I know. Finally, I thought I'd leave you with some advice from a tree. You've heard these before. Sometimes you just need to go out on a limb or maybe turn over a new leaf. And at other times, we just need to stay grounded. Remember your roots. Bend before you break, and always keep growing. I kind of hope that for the kids that I've maybe touched a little over the years, that they keep that interest going. Oh, and drink plenty of water. That's another one. I'm humbled by this honor, and once again, thanks to everyone for your support over the years.
Thank you, Gail. Of course, Gail's the reason we didn't have duck l'orange for a meal today. With Arbor Day being tomorrow, certainly an inspiration regardless of your age. So thank you very much for that. For our third Friend of Education Award presentation, I would like to welcome up to the podium Roberta Mark.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Bobby Mark, and I'm the president of the Beaver Dam chapter of the American Association of University Women, or AAUW. We are pleased and honored to receive the Friends of Education Award. You can tell because we make up the bulk of the audience here. AAUW is a national organization which works globally to support our mission of promoting gender equity for women and girls through education, research, and advocacy. They have been on the cutting edge of the fight for equity for 142 years. In that time, AAUW has given over $100 million in scholarships and grants to deserving young women around the world. They've supported dozens of gender discrimination cases in state and federal courts. They've published hundreds of scientific reports on topics relating to women and their families. And they have been key supporters in the passage of major laws related to gender equity, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Family and Medical Leave Act, and Title IX. In Beaver Dam, AAUW has only been around for 90 years. Since our first local meeting in 1933, we have given scholarships to graduating high school seniors. In the last 10 years alone, we've given over $60,000 in scholarships. We also give out scholarships to women returning to MPTC. In addition to scholarships, our local branch has sponsored hundreds of educational activities and programs. In the 50s and early 60s, when few women went to college, we hosted afternoon tea socials for high school girls, encouraging them to continue their educations. Over the years, we have given money to support literacy in Beaver Dam elementary schools. We've sponsored fine arts projects at both the Beaver Dam Middle School and High School, and we helped to build the Beaver Dam High School greenhouse. We've also sponsored speakers and workshops for girls that encourage them to participate in science, technology, engineering, and math. Most recently, AAUW has begun to examine the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last summer, we sponsored a community book read in conjunction with the Beaver Dam Public Library. The book was the basis for a public panel discussion held in partnership with the Beaver Dam Area Community Theater, and it was moderated by our own Craig Warmbold. This event was so successful that this summer we are encouraging Beaver Dam again to read a new book. This book is The Gift of Our Wounds by authors Parid Kalika and Arno McKellis from Milwaukee. This book is a powerful story of friendship between two men, one of the Sikh faith and one a skinhead, that resulted in an outpouring of love and a mission to fight against hate. Parid Kalika will be here in September to talk about his book and his experiences as a Sikh living in Wisconsin. The Beaver Dam Public Library has multiple copies of the book, and Mr. Kalika is tentatively scheduled to be here on September 20th. We encourage anyone interested to read this wonderful book and join us for a fascinating discussion in September. Our AAUW members are proud to call Beaver Dam home. We thank you for this award, and we look forward to continuing to support our community. Thank you.
You stay there. Bobby, and I don't know, what percentage of the membership is here?
Over a third.
Over a third, awesome. So that's wonderful. And thanks for allowing me to take your picture. I hope I did a good job, Margaret. On behalf of the Beaver Dam Unified School District, I'd like to thank you for your continued contributions in our community, your leadership, your willingness to ask questions, sometimes the tough questions that need to be asked to help us be better for kids, and to continue to model and exemplify leadership and advocacy to make sure that the best possible experiences are available for all of our students, and obviously our female students in particular. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it was truly a privilege and an honor to host that program in the fall, and to have had so many of the members of AAUW on our airwaves at WBEV over the years. We certainly do value that opportunity. Thank you. Our next presenter tells me that he will keep the video presentation to below 2 hours. We want to welcome up to the podium Roger Knoll, who will present the 2022 Outstanding Alumni Award. Roger? The notes say you were supposed to come up.
Yeah, like all of the alumni that I have nominated, there's always that one thing that they all had in common, and that was that they had a passion for a certain part of their life, and whatever the obstacles, they were going to overcome that passion, overcome those obstacles to get to their passion. And Margaret McFarland is no exception. She is an amazing woman, and I hope you enjoy this short video.
Margaret Lamoureux was born on June 24, 1916, on the dining room table of her family home at 328 Park Avenue. The Lamoureux family had a long history of civic duty to the city, state, and nation. Her grandfather, Silas Lamoureux, was a lawyer, state legislator, county commissioner, and judge. A personal friend to President Grover Cleveland, he would be appointed U.S. Land Commissioner and serve in Washington, D.C. from 1893 to 1897. Upon his return, along with his sons Don Percy and Harland, who was Margaret's father, they would establish and work at the Beaver Dam Malleable Iron Company. The company would dissolve in 1928. Don Percy built the Lamoureux Mansion that would later be transformed into the Lutheran Deaconess Hospital. After the company's dissolution, Margaret's father would bounce around from job to job, and the family would settle into a very middle-class lifestyle. But Margaret would always treasure her grandfather's legacy, and throughout her childhood years, aspire to follow him in becoming an attorney in order to serve others. Margaret was a precocious child. Ever the studious, yet greatly popular among her peers, she would skip a grade and graduate from Beaver Dam High School in 1934, at the ripe old age of 16. But any thoughts of college and eventual law school attendance were dashed by the Great Depression. With limited employment opportunities in Beaver Dam, on the day after her graduation, Margaret was placed on a train headed to Washington, D.C., where her uncle had secured a position for her with the Agricultural Adjustment Administration as a typist clerk. But Margaret, with hopes of becoming a lawyer, had not taken any business classes in high school. Being from Wisconsin, she was assigned to the dairy division. She knew nothing about the dairy industry. Expecting her to type dairy data on a long typewriter, her superiors soon realized her deficiency on the machine, and she was demoted to filing duties. Margaret, never one to disappoint, enrolled in business school at night, and within months was proficient in both typing and dictation. Now reinstated as a typist clerk, she found great success at the position she had been so unceremoniously removed from at the start. It was that proficiency that would lead to her next government position. In 1935, the recently established National Archives moved into its brand new D.C. building. Its task to preserve the history of our great nation. Margaret would be the 35th person to be hired by the institution. She would work directly under the first head archivist, Robert W. D. Connor. Connor was a personal friend of President Roosevelt, and Margaret would say her one brush with fame at the time was that Connor, who had many meetings with FDR, would assign Margaret the task of running out to the local store to buy a pack of Chesterfield cigarettes to sneak into the president. FDR was a staunch supporter of the National Archives, and Margaret would have the opportunity to see him in person as the ramps would be rolled out at night for his many visits. Margaret again would not be satisfied with remaining in her current assistant position. While working full-time, she would attend night school in order to be accredited as a professional archivist. At the age of 18, Margaret would be promoted to junior archivist and be assigned to the World War I division. Among her many accomplishments in this position was co-authoring the Handbook of Federal War Agencies and Their Records, 1917 through 1921. But Margaret would refuse to sit on her laurels. The need for improvement through education persisted. From 1935 through 1938, she would enroll in courses at George Washington University at night. Advised to seek a librarian degree in order for advancement at the National Archives, Margaret instead took courses in pre-law, with the intent to finally obtain her childhood dream of becoming an attorney. The first part of that dream would be achieved when, in the fall of 1938, she would, without benefit of an undergraduate degree, be accepted to National University Law School. Again, she would work full-time at the National Archives while attending law school full-time at night. Founded in 1869, National University School of Law was one of the first American law schools founded in the United States. It was known for its advancement of women's rights. The first woman to practice before the Supreme Court of the United States and the first woman professor of law in the United States were graduates of the school. The school existed until 1954, when it merged with George Washington University School of Law. Margaret flourished in law school, and her 3 years there would see her excel not only in academia, but also in her personal relationships with fellow students and faculty. So popular was she that in her second year, Margaret would be named Miss Attorney of National University. While maintaining a heavy workload at the National Archives and Law School, Margaret found time to be part of 2 academic sororities and co-editor of the university's yearbook. Her efforts would culminate in the spring of 1941, when at the age of 25, Margaret graduated from law school, a childhood dream fulfilled. But she soon was returned to reality when, after securing an interview at the Department of Justice through law school contacts, she would not be hired as an attorney, but told she could start in the secretarial pool and maybe sometime in the future an attorney position might open up for her. Dismayed by this chauvinistic attitude, Margaret felt it to be a downgrade from her superior position at the National Archives, so she returned there. Margaret passed the bar to practice in the District of Columbia in 1941, and would later be admitted to practice before the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia and the United States Supreme Court. While maintaining her full-time position at the archives, Margaret would put out a shingle to practice law with another woman graduate. They would try several cases in the few months following their graduation, but that would soon end with the onset of World War II. Wanting to serve the war effort, Margaret transferred to the Board of Economic Warfare in the quasi-legal position of Senior Administrative Assistant. In this position, she would review products that were imported into the United States or exported from the United States to determine if they in any way hindered or abetted the war effort. It was also in this position that she would encounter a superior named Archibald Hepburn McFarland. Once the war ended, Margaret learned that the General Accounting Office had an attorney opening. After a successful interview, Margaret finally attained a position commensurate with her learning. She would be one of the first female attorneys in the office of the Index Digest section in the Corporate Attorney's Office. The General Accounting Office, now known as the Government Accountability Office, is a legislative branch government agency that provides auditing, evaluative, and investigative services for the United States Congress. It is the supreme audit institution of the federal government of the United States. The GAO is known as the investigative arm of Congress and the congressional watchdog. It is highly regarded that the GAO is one of the most important offices in the United States. It employs over 3,000, including investigators, accountants, attorneys, and other sundry administrative staff. After hundreds of investigations and audits annually, the GAO provides opinions and decisions on their findings. Some opinions are published for the general public in the office's Index Digests. Others are not. As an incoming attorney, Margaret would be tasked with reviewing the opinions and decisions in order to prepare them for publication in the Index Digest. She would also be called on to prepare her superiors on a number of various topics prior to their testifying in front of Congress. It was during her first 3 years a superior was unable to edit the Index Digest. That task was thrust upon Margaret to complete. With no training, Margaret would perform the job with great success. Margaret would never do anything half-hearted. Remember her superior at the Board of Economic Warfare, Archibald McFarland? Well, after the war, Archie was dispatched as a diplomat to open up the embassy in China. After that 2-year stint, Archie returned to Washington. Out of the blue, he asked Margaret out on Palm Sunday, 1947. 4 months later, they were married. Having proven her stellar capabilities at the GAO, in 1948, Margaret would be promoted to chief of the Legislative Digest section. She would now be responsible for caring for all audits, investigations, and opinions relating to the Hill. In 1954, she would assume the position of Chief of Index Digest section. Her responsibilities would now encompass all audits, investigations, and opinions performed by the GAO. And now affectionately known as Mrs. Mack, her star continued to rise, when in 1960 she would attain the position of Chief of all legal reference materials. Her duties would be compounded, as her job description provided, responsible for the administrative and technical management of the Index Digest section, Legislative Digest section, Law Library, and Index and Files section, which includes some 65 employees, including attorneys, legal clerks, librarians, and clerical staff. As a working chief, she has the responsibility for digesting and indexing decisions of the Comptroller General, maintenance of the legal reference and citation files, compilation of the legislative histories of public and private laws, supervision of an extensive law and accounting library, and management of the permanent files of the GAO. She prepares material for the annual report, budget, and other report requirements for the Office of General Counsel, and personally supervises the training, recruitment, and career development of staff of legal references. Now responsible for hiring, Margaret would hire the first African American attorney at the GAO. She oftentimes would brief members of Congress on opinions and audits. Her two favorites were Senator William Proxmire from Wisconsin and Senator Everett Dirksen from Illinois. During her career, Margaret was recipient of many awards for her selfless dedication to serving the American public. And upon her retirement in 1971, Margaret would be bestowed the Comptroller General's Distinguished Service Award. She was the first woman to receive the award, and it is the highest award given to a government employee. Margaret returned to Beaver Dam in 1971, but hardly slowed down. Her service to the community and state flourished. She served as legal research counsel for the Wisconsin Hospital Association, authoring a 2-volume manual on Wisconsin hospital law. Margaret served several terms on the Beaver Dam City Board of Appeals. She was secretary to the Dodge County Historical Society and secretary to Chapter 1091 of the National Association of Retired Federal Employees. Other memberships included Beaver Dam AAUW, Dodge County Bar Association, Wisconsin Historical Society, Dodge County Friends of Animals, and Partners of the Beaver Dam Hospital. In 1990, Margaret would be asked to return to Washington, D.C. to take part in a video interview to honor those women who blazed the trail for current women in the GAO. Margaret, after an hour-and-a-half interview chronicling the many highlights of her career, was asked to sum up her greatest accomplishments at the GAO. Rather than toot her own horn, she humbly referred to associates at the GAO.
To be not too modest now and let us know what you think your personal accomplishments were.
Well, they've all said it so well, and of course I loved working in GAO too. And I guess the greatest pleasure I had was seeing the people that I had come to my shop go to better positions in GAO, and the fact that many of them stayed in GAO, and a few of them, as we said this noon, came back to GAO, to Office of General Counsel, and I always felt they were better attorneys for having had a chance to see what private practice or some other government agency was like, and then return. It did take a little talking to get people back on the roll once they had left, but we fortunately, I guess, always made it.
But in terms of the kinds of activities you were involved in GAO, legal research, I would call it, a lot of aspects of GAO that involved its activities with the Congress, or as you mentioned earlier, also with the media. Was that a satisfying activity? Is this the kind of work that you felt most comfortable in? Were you ever thinking of maybe joining the other groups that into decision writing or that sort of stuff?
Not really particularly, I guess, although I preferred doing things rather than being a supervisor. I think because I liked doing the congressional record and doing legislative histories and so forth and research.
I noticed you got promoted frequently. I noticed you got 12 outstanding ratings in 21 years.
I don't know.
And I got that from some of your friends. Plus so many different awards and things. And of course, you all got you.
Sadly, Margaret Lamoureux McFarland passed away October 26, 2008, at the age of 92. But Margaret McFarland's legacy is an inspiration to us all, especially women and girls of all ages. At a time when all looked hopeless from the Great Depression, a 16-year-old teenager took on the world, never forsaking her dream. At every point in her life, when faced with an obstacle, rather than claim herself a victim of her circumstances, she did not just overcome it, she obliterated it. No glass ceiling would hold her back. For 38 years, she dedicated her life to the betterment of our nation. And in a town where backroom deals are common and success is sometimes measured by the bodies you walk over to climb to the top, Margaret Lamoureux McFarland succeeded by excelling at her job and treating others with respect and kindness.
There you go. How about another round of applause for Roger Nolan putting that together? That was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Roger. Truly an inspiring story and a lot of obvious connections to some of the other awards and recognitions this evening, so very excited about that. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Tom Helford up to receive the award on behalf of Margaret Lamoureux McFarland.
I'm a photographer, now I need a picture. Is there anybody that wants to help me take a picture? Craig? Thank you. Handshake and sounds good.
All right, very good.
Super.
Would you like to?
I would love to. I think what I heard in that very interesting story from Roger was blazing a trail for women. Quite honestly, most of the stuff that Roger's got on that nice short little video, I didn't know. Margaret was one, you started talking about Washington, talking about things were going on. That's just foolishness. Back, well, you heard her on there. Take it right back. It wasn't about, well, what did you accomplish? No, that was the people who were at GEO with me. What did they accomplish? It was just never, that just wasn't her. So I guess I can't say anything more than Roger did about her professional career. I think it was absolutely outstanding. I can't imagine being 16 years old, graduating from high school, not even getting a party on the train. Off you go to Washington, D.C. back in, 34 that you went out there? That had to be something. She did say one time that, yeah, I used to walk from work to work. She lived up near the embassies in Washington, D.C., and she had to walk several blocks to work. She said, I used to walk with then Senator Harry Truman, and he then would go on to the Capitol. Now, how many of them do you think are walking to the Capitol these days? Bodyguards and drivers and everything else. But he said he was quite a character as she would be walking along with him. Like I say, I can't say a whole bunch more about all of the stuff that you heard. She was an amazing person, but I guess I've heard everybody else getting the awards, and a lot of it was very student-oriented and very much like, I know Fred McMurray got an award, and, I can understand that he was a famous person, but I just never thought of her as famous, I guess. She just, not like the woman I just heard about here. I do remember that when she did that little thing with going out to Washington, D.C., and she got out there, and the uncle, I don't even know she knew that uncle. I never heard much about him. But Roger said that he gave her a bunch of coins of tokens and said, go find where you're going to work. 16. Would we send our kids even to Washington, D.C. by themselves now? I don't think so. But not then. Off she went. Also, I can remember that there was many a times that we would talk about the various things of Washington, and like I said, she would have nothing to do with it, but it was always about, well, how's your family, how you're doing? I always kind of considered her like an extra set of parents for me, and for sure an extra grandmother and dad, Archie and her, Mrs. Mack, for our daughter Lisa. I just want to give you a little bit about my personal history with her. Back in 1969, I was in the U.S. Navy. My dad was the editor of the newspaper here in town. He knew Margaret because he needed somebody to get information from for the stories for the paper. When you get out to Washington, D.C., call Margaret and Archie. I was in lots of places where I called people, and I got lots of help for things that I needed. So we called. They said, well, come on over for supper. Well, you got to remember, this was the third year in the Navy out of a 4-year tour, and we were not exactly overwhelmingly paid back in those days. So didn't have a lot of money, and we got out there, and it was just a real quaint, small apartment. You would have thought, after seeing all that was going on there, but they were felt very comfortable where they were. We sat down, and Archie was really good at making old fashions, and when you're from Wisconsin, I guess that's really important, but he was good at it. And he would make us old fashions, and then had some stuff for our daughter, a kiddie cocktail or something, and then brought out these hors d'oeuvres, which are absolutely wonderful. Tenderloin on crackers. He made crab balls fresh from you get it out of the markets and stuff, and just all kinds of really good finger food. And my wife Joanne and I and our daughter Lisa, we sat and we ate until we were about that full, thinking that was it. Not so. Archie was a gourmet cook. He had a whole pork loin made, and everything was from fresh and was wonderful. I didn't like sweet potatoes. His you would like, and I did. Everything was just, and here we ate all that other food, and now we ate all this food, and we're just about dying. We're so full. Then he says, oh, and by the way, there's this great Swiss bakery down the way, and I've got a cake. And he comes out with this big cake, and so we had cake. So by the time we got done with that, we were just absolutely full. So every month, they would have us over. Every month, I got to call my folks. Every month, my wife got to call her folks back in Beaver Dam here, and our daughter got to talk to Grandma and Grandpa, all three of them. And this happened all the way through for 2 years while I was in the service. I retired out of the military. and they retired out of the government. Archie had already retired before that, but Margaret, maybe it was that we were going and she was too, and they came back here, and that house you saw on Park Avenue was recreated into the McFarland household. They had put, I'm sure they had stuff over all of it to keep it for all those years, but beautiful old house. And so we got back, and from that point on, we would be over visiting with her. Archie passed away, I think, 6 years later, and they were just wonderful people. The lady you saw up there that was doing all those things, that just didn't seem like Margaret. And it sure didn't seem like Archie. Found out he was also a diplomat over in Turkey. And I just, when we cleared out of my Beaver Dam house this year, I found his passports. And there was all these things from China and Turkey and stuff, and it was like amazing, just what that must have been like back in their days and what they were doing to get things going. But I think the main thing I thought of while we were going through this whole thing tonight, thank you, by the way, everybody, for doing this for her. It just, and Roger, thank you, Roger. That's you are a treasure for Beaver Dam. You really are. Thank you much. I sent that to my wife last night, and she said, amazing. So he is. You have a treasure there. But the thing that I think about this is, if you had tried to do this while she was alive, you'd had to drag her up here. She wouldn't have done it. She just wouldn't have done it. So I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad I could be here to grab this for her. Somewhere up there, I know she's watching. That was the first time I saw her live since she passed away. And I tell you, a little tear came to my eyes. So, thank you for thinking of her, and thank you, Roger, for nominating her and doing that wonderful piece. It just made my day.
And how about a round of applause for all of our recipients today? And I would like to thank all of you for joining us for today's 24th annual Wall of Fame program. That includes all of the presenters, Mark DiStefano, Mary Clowder, Roberta Mark, Roger Knoll, even if he wasn't expecting it. Also to those, the recipients, Bev Beelake, Cale Princeton, the American Association of University Women Beaver Dam Branch. Absolutely remarkable work you've done for the district. Thank you very much for that. To the nominators who have nominated those people, I know the Wall of Fame committee wants those nominations to keep coming in. Special thank you to Roger Knoll. That was really an exceptional video. It was under 2 hours. I wasn't wrong about that, but it really was quite an exceptional video. Also, a special thank you to Mary Postuma, who I don't think I've ever thanked up here in all the years that I've been doing these. So. Not easy to pull one of these things off. High school culinary arts class, wonderful job. Mrs. Shore, the culinary arts teacher, and Taher Food for all the delicious food that they provided today. We really do appreciate it. A special thank you to Russ Tronson and his whole team here at the high school for welcoming recipients this afternoon and coordinating both the assembly and the tour. Russ, very much appreciated. The Wall of Fame committee members, could we get the whole committee to stand up? Any members of the committee that are here? Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. We do appreciate it. And again, encouraging those nominations of yourself, of your friends. You don't have to put a video together. It's not a mandate. But again, thank you to Roger for that. Don't really have a graceful way to end. On the notes that they asked me to have all of you return the name badges. We don't want to create any extra costs for the school district, taxes and everything, what they are. Stealing is a criminal offense. Beaver Dam Unified School District will not hesitate to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, I'm sure. No. But again, thank you all so much for coming. This is a video that will be available on the school district YouTube page. So please share it with your friends, family, share it on your social media so that other people could see the remarkable work of the American Association of University Women Beaver Dam Branch, Gail Princeton, Bev Beal Lake, and of course our 2022 outstanding alumni, Margaret Lamoureux McFarland. Thank you so much for joining us today.